Welcome to Vacation Nights. We're live here in Maitland, Florida at the Travel Planners International headquarters. I am joined here with about 30 amazing, excited people who are excited to learn all about celebrity cruises and specifically about Alaska. So everyone say hi to everybody that's on camera.
Hello!
You can't see them, but I promise you, they're really, really here. So I'm Jen Lee. I am your host, and tonight is an interactive educational event for you to learn all about celebrity cruises as well as Alaska. And I've got a couple of people to introduce in a minute. But first off, before I forget, who's been to Alaska in this room before?
Very
I'm
cool.
so jealous. I want to go. I can't wait. I've actually asked my husband to tune in live, and I won't embarrass him because then he'll tune out immediately. But I'm dying for him to say yes so that I can go on a celebrity cruise to Alaska. Had an opportunity to sail Celebrity for Australia and New Zealand this past year. Top notch, amazing, can't say enough things about them. So, a couple of things. If you've got questions, you're going to type them into the chat box. For those of you that are here, just raise your hand and say, hey, Jen, I've got a question, and I'll interrupt this handsome man, and we'll get your questions answered. But before we get started, let me introduce my co-host here. So I have Dave Myhofer. Right,
Perfect.
I said it, Dave Myhofer, who is actually our celebrity rep here for all of our Travel Planners International agents. And Dave takes great care of us, right?
I try my best.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you everybody who's tuned in live here, and obviously everybody who came here tonight to TPI headquarters. As Jen said, my name is Dave, and I've been proudly working with Celebrity Cruises for 5+ years now. And it's my honor to be here talking about Alaska and Alaska cruise tours. I won't do too much of the talking because I kind of leave that to the experts or expert. But really the partnership we have with Travel Planners International and what we do with them year in and year out really is a true benefit to those guests who choose to cruise with Alaska, cruise to Alaska, cruise on Celebrity, and make that vacation come to life through Travel Planners International. So thank you all of you out there that are listening, all of you who are potentially going to Alaska. We look forward to welcoming you aboard.
I love it. And at the end of the night, you're going to tell us about an exclusive offer that is just for people who are watching live. So if you're watching today on February, what's today's date? 21st, on February 21st in 2018. If you're watching live, you and you alone are going to get this exclusive offer. If you are a consumer and you're not connected with one of our TPI agents, we'll get you connected and I'll give you details on that. And if you're one of our agents, we're going to give you all the details. But they have to watch, right, to the very end.
Everything.
I mean, why wouldn't you, right? It's going to be so exciting. All right, so let's give it up for Dave. Thank you, Dave.
Thank you. I'll see you in a bit.
Get the heck out of here, Dave. All right, and then my next guest and the main guy, the one that's really going to explain everything to you, is Mr. Brendan Holcomb, right?
That's right.
That's right. And Brendan, you have a bit of an accent.
I do. I'm from the great state of England.
The great state of England. I don't think it's a state. But anyways, okay. And you're going to tell us, why are you an expert on Alaska? Tell us why.
I'm an expert because this is the product that I work with Celebrity Cruises. So both on the southeastern coastline of Alaska and the interior of Alaska. But I was on cruise ships for over 11 years. So I did 9 different cruise lines up there, 20 different ships. If I take all the contracts that I spent in Alaska, and a contract is just the 4 to 6 months, right, that we would spend working on board, and I squeeze them together, I would have spent 3 solid years just cruising the southeastern coastline of Alaska.
Wow.
So it was an amazing, amazing place. I was always excited to go back. My colleagues, my team members were always excited to go back. It is a fabulous part of the world.
Yeah.
Last 3 years, I've been working with our partnerships in the interior of Alaska, so I do a lot of sitting in a cubicle, a lot of flying back and forth between Miami and Anchorage, and when I get the opportunity to come out, talk about it a little bit, it's an awesome time, so it's great to be here.
That's awesome. So fantastic. So he's been there, done that firsthand, which is, as we know, for those of us that are travel agents in there, that's why people connect with us, because most of the time we've been there, been able to see it direct. So I'm super excited. So we've got a great presentation. We're going to talk all about Alaska.
Yes, we
I'm
are.
going to let him talk, I promise, but I haven't seen what he's talking about, so I'm kind of representing you guys. For those that are too shy to ask a question, if he says something that seems kind of like, what are you talking about? I'm going to go, I don't understand. What are you talking about, okay? So I'm not being rude. You're going to be okay with that, right?
Absolutely.
Fantastic. All right, let's give him a round of applause. Let's get started. Let's talk Alaska.
So before we get started, we're going to watch a quick video.
Oh,
And
fantastic.
why? Because when I was at school, I always liked it when the teacher played videos and didn't talk, right?
Sure.
Who likes the teacher to talk? So we're going to watch a quick video. This is going to be about 3 minutes long.
All right.
As one of the world's most exhilarating natural wonders, Alaska has so much to offer. Expansive landscapes, iconic wildlife, and intriguing native cultures. So when you book a Celebrity Cruises vacation to Alaska, be sure you experience the best of both land and sea. A Celebrity Cruise will take you to some of the most extraordinary stops along Alaska's Inside Passage. On your cruise, you'll experience updated luxury at every turn, while taking in the best of coastal Alaska. You'll see glaciers flowing into the sea, forests rising up from the shoreline, and bald eagles soaring gracefully overhead. And as breathtaking as the cruise along the southeastern coastline is, there's so much more of Alaska just waiting to be discovered.
At least once a tour, I turned to my group and I said, I'd like to welcome you all to my office. This is where I work, and I'm glad you're here with me and that I can share Alaska with you.
Travelers who want the best of Alaska, book a Celebrity Cruises cruise tour, which offers an exhilarating cruise and a multi-night, fully escorted land tour. On a Celebrity Cruise tour, the land portion of your adventure will immerse you in the unspoiled wilderness of Alaska's interior.
Driver and tour director will really be their concierge, their historian. They're going to be their friend. They're going to make sure that everything goes smoothly for those guests.
You'll experience the must-see destinations, as well as some local favorites your tour director will point out along the way. Destinations include Denali National Park, Seward, Fairbanks, Talkeetna, Girdwood, or Anchorage. Be amazed by North America's highest peak, Mount McKinley. Get stunning photos of caribou, rare birds, and Dall sheep. Go fishing in waters rich with salmon. Experience the famed midnight sun. And at every stop, you'll stay in authentic lodges and dine on the best local cuisine. Get the full Alaska experience with a coastline cruise, as well as travel deep into Alaska's rugged wilderness with a Celebrity Cruises cruise tour. Because Celebrity Cruises believes that every moment of your vacation should be measured by just how far it takes you from the ordinary. That's modern luxury. That's Celebrity Cruises.
All right, awesome,
All right, I think we're
awesome.
done here. I mean, that was amazing.
Really? I came from Texas for that?
Yeah, no, let's let you go ahead and continue
awesome.
to talk.
Because, you know,
Wow.
I've been married 5 years now. My wife doesn't let me talk anymore.
Okay.
So anytime I get an opportunity to speak, I really take advantage of it. Before we get into the meat of things, I just want to direct you guys' attention to the brochure. This is the Celebrity Cruise Tours brochure. It's actually a 52-page brochure that is dedicated to the Celebrity Cruise Tour experience. And really, we're going to get into this day. There's a lot of minutia about what is a cruise tour, right, over the cruise experience. What is it about tour directors and rail and hotels and all the good stuff that's a little bit minutia, really well messaged, really well described in this brochure. And why? Because I put this together. And somewhere around February time, I disappear off into a hole for 3 months. My wife doesn't see me, and what comes out at the end of it is this brochure. So this is a really fabulous tool in order to understand what a cruise tour experience is. It starts off with why an Alaska cruise tour over just the Alaska cruise experience. We get into the destinations, we get into what's unique, the celebrity difference as we call it. And then right at the back of the brochure, we have what's called the daily details. So this is fabulous because it's every single cruise tour that we have, and it breaks out day by day the experiences that you're gonna have while you're there. So it's a really great tool to understand on a day-by-day basis what's going on. Everybody here has one of these brochures, but for anybody at home,
Yep.
they can contact their TPI.
Yep, so if you are a consumer and you have an agent, a TPI agent, you just want to like text them right now and say, please get me that brochure ASAP,
Okay.
right? Can they get it online? Is that something they can get online? Or?
So the
brochure?
the travel professional will be able to source it for them, absolutely.
Perfect. So if you are a TPI agent, you'll be able to, we'll give you some details a little bit later on. I think Marissa Bell can probably type in some stuff on how you can access this brochure. We'll make sure you're well taken care of.
Awesome. So
Thank you.
let's talk a little bit about Alaska. what to say about Alaska. There is so much.
Yeah.
There is more coastline in Alaska than the East Coast, the West Coast, and the Gold Coast combined. And that doesn't even include the Aleutian chains that are down at the bottom. I think it's sometimes not recognized how big this part of the world is until you get down there, until you start to see it for yourself. My wife is from Texas. We did 4
And that's
years in
big,
Miami.
by the way.
That is big.
Yeah.
We did 4 years in Miami. She woke up one day, said, I can't do this anymore. We moved down to Texas about a year ago. Her favorite fridge magnet is a picture of France that's inside a picture of Texas. And of course, the caption is, Texas is bigger than France. And it is,
Right, right.
But Texas can also fit, you can fit 2.5 Texases into the state of Alaska.
Wow.
Right? So you begin to imagine how big this part of the world is. So when you start thinking about going to Alaska, when you start thinking about the experiences that you're going to have when you get down there, that really puts it in perspective as to how big it is and what you need to do to have the best experience possible.
Well, and that's, I think, the big thing is sometimes people decide not to go someplace because they feel like, where do I go within that place? And that's the reason why you want to connect with an agent, obviously a travel agent, but you also want to have somebody like yourself who's already been there, done that, figured out what the right places are to go and how to experience it. So.
Right, because there's a lot of options.
Sure.
Especially as you start to look into the interior of Alaska, the coastline of Alaska, there's a lot of options. So let me show you this. So up on the screen here, this is the southeastern coastline of Alaska. You can see there down at the bottom, you've got the Vancouver, Seattle sort of a region, right? And then the southeastern coastline of Alaska, you're going to travel up north, do destinations such as Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, Icy Strait Point. You got a scenic air of cruising, and up at the top, you've got the destination of Seward. And then up north there, you've got the interior of Alaska. Now, you don't want to miss the cruise because many of the experiences and many of the destinations along the southeastern coastline of Alaska, you can't get to them by land. You're either going there by sea or you're going there by air, right? You can't get there, they're landlocked. In fact, Juneau, which is the state capital of Alaska, is landlocked. You can't get there any other way, which, you know, the politicians love. But that cruise along the southeastern coastline of Alaska, it's a great way in order to experience those destinations. And the experiences that are open to you are awesome. They are vast, they are spectacular. When you go to destinations such as Ketchikan, flying amongst the Misty Fjords National Monument with those 1,000-foot cliffs either side of you, those Smoky Mountains, it is one of a kind in Juneau, an Icy Strait Point, some of the finest whale watching in the world. The whales migrate down in around March, April time down the Pacific into Alaska. Fabulous, fabulous experiences that are open to you. Even as you go to Skagway, the narrow gauge rail experience, it's called the Yukon White Pass Rail, is the highest rated narrow gauge rail experience in the world, and it follows the route that the miners took in the late 1800s in order to access the Yukon goldfields. You're surrounded by that spectacular scenery, those peaks and valleys, and it's around you, and it's historical, and it's awesome, and it's all there.
I mean, this guy is excited about Alaska. I mean, like, let's go right now. You said March, April. You said March, April, right?
The season starts in like May.
Okay.
Right, and then you go through to September because it's a summer season.
Yeah.
So you don't have a lot that's going on there during the wintertime, or certainly from a cruising perspective. But that summer season is the fabulous, fabulous season to be there.
Okay, again, I'm going to ask questions, and I think you guys are, like, summer, we're here in Orlando, Florida. Summer here is 104 degrees. So what's summer up in Alaska? So what are we, you know, what's that
So you're
temperature
going to be,
like?
so typically, let's take Anchorage, you're going to be in the 60s sort of a range.
Yeah,
Right?
let's
Now,
do
as you
that.
go down to the coastline, further down, Seward, down as you go down to Ketchikan, it's going to get a little cooler. As you go to the interior, it's going to get a little warmer. But you got to remember that Alaska is beautiful, and it is for a reason. There's a lot of sunshine. You can have 23, 24 hours worth of sunshine as you get there during the height of the summer, and there's a lot of rain.
Yeah.
Right? So you're never picking you never pick the time that you go there by saying that I'm going to have the beautiful weather when you get down there. You just don't know.
Yeah.
You're picking your time when you go down there by what is good for your schedule, and you know what? The weather that you get is the weather that you get. And it might be fabulous and beautiful sunny, you might have a little bit of a rain, but you're going to have a fabulous experience
Sure,
regardless.
sure. Sometimes those fjords are even better looking when it has the rain and the low fog and all that.
Right.
Look at me sounding like I know what I'm talking about.
Didn't I
You're
just
doing
say
a
that?
good job,
Didn't
yeah.
I just say that? You're
You
going to
did.
repeat what I said like you're the expert?
Yeah, like I'm totally going to do that. Yes, exactly. Do we have any questions? And please type in your questions. Yes, sir.
When is the best time to see the whales? Because we were there in June and we were there in September. We saw a lot more whales in September than we did in June.
So let's make sure we repeat the question because we've got, the audience won't be.
You got it. So the question was, when is the best time to see the whales, and for when you go down to Alaska? I think kind of some of the challenges sometimes is that someone has a unique experience in Alaska, and that becomes the recommendation when maybe they've been there once or twice. So somebody goes to Alaska in July, and then the recommendation becomes, you know what, the weather is great in Alaska in July. No, it was great when you went in July. That doesn't mean that it's always great in July.
Then they should always travel with
know?
you if you're a good weather person.
I think as the whale experiences that you can have, they typically migrate down in March, April time. So by the time you get to May, there is great opportunities for whale experiences right the way through to September. I don't think you could pick a time there, certainly for whales, to say it is a more positive or a more negative time in order to have those experiences. You really do have great opportunities for it. I wouldn't pick a month. And I wouldn't pick a month for a particular reason, because when you start to pick that month, when you start to say, if you go at this time, the clouds will better rise from formerly Mount McKinley, now Denali, the opportunities for wildlife, that becomes the expectation of the person when they go down there, and you really can't gauge it like that. Certainly wildlife on land, maybe there's better opportunities in the earlier part of the season, but that's not got anything to do with the wildlife. That's because Alaska starts to bloom, right, as you get higher into the summer. And when it blooms, that creates more foliage, and more foliage creates more opportunities for that wildlife to hide. So the earlier that you go in the season, the more opportunities you have to see wildlife, because they're not able to hide within the foliage. But whales, I wouldn't put it in that category.
They kind of have a mind of their own. They kind of just come and go as they please.
Shocking, isn't it?
Right, shocking.
Genuinely
So,
shocking.
Shocking. All right, good deal. Any other questions from this side? Anybody online? Please make sure you're giving so much information. That's why they haven't asked any questions yet.
That's good.
Or they can't wait to hear more about it.
Well, let's tell them more
Let's
about
keep
it then.
going. I'm so excited. Wait, yes, sir.
When is the mosquito season there?
When's the mosquito season there?
So mosquitoes are, there is going to be mosquitoes year-round. Not year-round, certainly in the summer season of Alaska. Typically, the black flies or mosquitoes, as they're herd, there's more towards the latter part of the season as you get into the August time frame. But one has to have an expectation that they'll be around, right? Not swarming, but they'll be around as you go through the summer season.
I didn't even know Alaska had mosquitoes, so it must not be that big of a deal. Okay, they wear jackets? Those are some interesting. It's only in Alaska. You got to go to Alaska to see a mosquito with a jacket. Okay.
I haven't had a lot of
Is
mosquito
that in your?
experiences.
Is that in your? Is that in your thing? Is that in your? Is that in your?
I
picture?
think it's on page
I'll
12.
I'll find the picture. I'll find the picture.
You go through that. I'll keep on
take care of
talking.
it. You keep talking. You
Okay.
keep talking.
Negatives and positives.
He had a bit of a moment there.
I think one of the saddest things, and I say this everywhere I go, one of the saddest things that I hear about Alaska all the time, and I try and talk about how this is not the case, is this idea that in order to have a great experience, when you're on the cruise, and those experiences that you have to go into the ports, you got to have a lot of money. Because people have this expectation that I got to be on a float plane every day. I got to be on a helicopter every day. I got to do these things in order for that to be an Alaskan experience. To be on a float plane, to be on a helicopter, yes, it's a high dollar experience, right? $300, $400, $500 a person if you're going to go up onto a helicopter and land on a glacier and then go dog sledding along the glacier. But there are just as many little to no money experiences that are available in Alaska as there are those high dollar experiences. You can have one of those and absolutely balance it around throughout the trip. One of the things that I love to do, my favorite thing to do, was as I came down to Juneau, wonderful Port Juneau, where you dock, about a 10-minute walk from the ship is Mount Juneau. Now you can take a cable car to the top of the mountain, but walk around the back, and there's a beautiful 45-minute hike that takes you to the top of the mountain, and before you get there, the lower ridge opens out to the Gastineau Channel where the ships sail in, and it is fabulous, and it is free.
Yes. Oh my goodness. Yes, ma'am.
I have to just second that. I did that. I tell
You did it, right?
all my clients that. And the fact that, this is what I say, it's as close to God as you're going to get before
Yes.
getting there.
Wow. And so that's in Juneau?
So
Repeat
that's-
that, because I want to get close to God like Effie did. So,
Is
y'all
that
didn't hear it.
Is that an alcoholic drink?
Yeah, well, it is, yes,
I don't think
it
you're getting
is.
close to God.
Jesus juice, we call it. You're in Texas, for God's sakes. You should know that. JC juice.
So
That's in Juneau.
as you dock at Juneau, I'm wondering if I'm going to get into heaven.
Yeah.
As you dock in Juneau, literally a 10-minute walk from the ship. It's called Mount Juneau. Now you can take a cable car to the top of the mountain, but the actual hike, you go around the back to where the cable car is. It's actually called the Resurrection Trail, which is just there. You may have done it. And then you can hike up to the top of the mountain from there. It's not like a crazy difficult hike.
Right.
And it is gorgeous.
Yeah.
It is absolutely gorgeous. As you go to Denali National Park, beautiful destination. If you got kids, if you got families, you can go to the visitor center in Denali National Park and they will give you a backpack for free.
Wow.
That is full of binoculars and coloring books and little putties so they can do animal tracks. You leave a $20 deposit. Your kid has these activities for the day to explore, and they give you that $20 deposit back when you bring that backpack back.
That is so cool.
So there are those things that you can do, but then there are the things that are the high dollar experiences. And people get this idea, unless I got 10 grand in order to do shore excursions, I'm not going to have an Alaskan experience. That's not true.
Yeah.
There are fabulous, fabulous experiences to have as you go down there, whether it's high dollar experiences or something that's little to no money.
Love it. Fantastic. Good. All right. Well, I'm definitely doing the helicopter, getting closer to God through the Resurrection Trail, and I want my own backpack. Mark that down. Someone book my.
I feel
cruise
like
right now.
I feel like I said so much more than that,
Yeah.
and then you really just took it
Trying to
down to its
bottom line-
base
I'm
level.
just trying to bottom line it for those of us that we're trying to keep. It's all in this brochure, including the mosquitoes with the jackets. Okay, keep going. Tell us more.
So there's this whole other area of Alaska, right? You got the southeastern coastline of Alaska, Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, Icy Strait Point. You may have heard of Sitka, scenic areas of cruising. We'll talk about those. But up at the top, you've got the interior of Alaska, which are some of the most fabulous destinations that you have the opportunity to experience as you go to the southeastern coastline. Denali National Park, which you've probably heard of, right? With the 6 million acres of pristine and wild land, the tundra and the taiga and the opportunity for the mountain. And you've probably heard about the big 5 in Alaska, right? The moose, the caribou, the grizzlies, the Dall sheep, and the wolves. That's your opportunity to see that as you go up there. You have Talkeetna. If anybody remembers, do you remember Northern Exposure from the 90s?
Yes, I
Okay.
love that where the moose walk down the middle of the street.
Right?
Yeah.
Funky, wonderful Northern Exposure is based on funky, wonderful Talkeetna. It's the town that lives at the end of the road. Awesome place to have local experiences. The bush pilots are flying up around the skies during the day and hanging around in the bars and the cafes in the early evening. You can have those great local experiences as you go down there. Seward. 11 years I was on board. And I got to go to some cool places in Asia and Australia and South America, and I'm from Europe, and there is still a destination that I can't think of that takes my breath away like Seward.
Yeah.
Sits on the Kenai Peninsula, the Fjordal Mountains cascade down from the Alaska Range into the ocean. You've got Kenai Fjords National Park. It's known as the destinations where Alaskans go to pray, and still, 15 years later, I go there every year at the beginning of the season, and it still takes my breath away. It is absolutely beautiful. The highway that sits in between Seward and Anchorage is known as one of the top 10 most beautiful highways in the world. It is truly, truly spectacular. So what is a cruise tour? A cruise tour is simply 2 things. It is the combination of a 7-night cruise, northbound or southbound. That means it's sailing from from Vancouver to Seward, or Seward down to Vancouver. You're seeing that on your
Yep,
screen there.
yep.
Combined with a 2 to 6 night land tour into the interior of Alaska. But it is a true packaged experience, right? It's not a 7-night cruise and a 3-night land tour. It's a 10-night cruise tour. It's not a 7-night cruise and a 4-night land tour. It's an 11-night cruise tour.
So just for those of us that are a little slower than most, so do you stay on the ship the whole time, or do you get off during that 2 or 3 nights and you're staying in a hotel or a resort or
Exactly
a Ritz
right.
or something
yeah,
like
so you
that?
got your 7-night on board the cruise, a traditional cruise experience. But as you go to the interior of Alaska, as part of that touring experience, you're staying in local lodges that we'll talk about. On the
Okay, good.
rail section, fully escorted. We'll talk about that. It's an experience into the interior of Alaska.
Got it.
And I think the number one question that people have all the time should I go northbound or should I go southbound? Because you have the opportunity to do the two, right? Either you can fly into Vancouver, do a 7-night northbound sailing that will take you down to Seward, and then a 2 to 6 night land tour in the interior of Alaska. You then fly home from Anchorage or Fairbanks. Or alternately, you can fly into Anchorage or Fairbanks, which is in the interior of Alaska, do that 2 to 6 night land tour that would take you down to Seward, and then you got the 7-night sailing that would take you to Vancouver.
Can you just do both?
You can do both. Have you got the time?
No, not really. But some other people in here might have the time. Okay, so
So
good.
people ask all the time, should I go northbound or should I go southbound?
Yeah.
Typically what you'll hear is that it's better to go southbound. That's what people talk about the most. And the reason that they say that is because it's the idea that the touring experience and it's hustle and it's bustle and you're going around and then you get on the ship in Seward and you just relax,
Yeah.
right, as you sail down to Vancouver. And that is true, but it's also a preference thing. There is no difference to a northbound cruise tour that there is to a southbound cruise tour.
You're doing the same thing.
It's the same thing. You're just going north or you're going south. My preference is to go northbound. And the reason I prefer to go northbound is because you can imagine flying into the interior of Alaska, right? It's typically, you got some red-eye flights there. As you get there, maybe you go in a Fairbanks summertime, you've got 23, 24 hours of sunlight, right? You're acclimatizing, and then the next day, you're into that touring experience. There's some acclimatization there that's needed. But if you go northbound, you're flying into Vancouver, it's an easier flight. And what happens on day one of any cruise?
You get drunk. No, you're exhausted.
Man.
You hit the buffet.
Is that a message from your preacher?
Yes. Jesus loves me. Just the way I am.
So the first day of any cruise, what is it? It's a government-sanctioned nap, right? It's a sea day. Every first day is a sea day. So you get on Vancouver, you have your sea day, you start to acclimatize, you got a beautiful cruise, and then as you get to Seward, you bring in that touring experience. So I prefer northbound.
So you start south and then head north. I probably would do that too because one of the beautiful things about being on specifically a celebrity cruise is you meet the most amazing people. And so you're meeting them on the cruise. And so then you're starting to go up and then you go into the 2 and 3 nighters. You already know these people.
Right, and you'll find that a lot of folks on board the ship are going to be on the touring experience into the interior of Alaska. So depending on if you're together, opportunity to make friends there as you experience the interior of Alaska. I prefer northbound. Some people prefer southbound. The important point is that there is no right or wrong answer to that question. It's a genuine preference thing, whether you want to go northbound or whether you want to go southbound.
Yes, ma'am.
So the land cruise, it's all inclusive, right?
So as you're going to the interior of Alaska, it includes the lodges, it includes the transportation, it is fully escorted. That is all part of the cost of the cruise tour. Now, when you say all inclusive, there's one thing that it doesn't include. The tour portion of the cruise tour doesn't include the meals, right? On the cruise, it is standard, right? But on the tour portion of the cruise tour, it doesn't include the meals. Now, speaking bigger, right, about the cruise tour industry, because it's not just us, you got other folks that are doing it, nobody includes meals as part of the tour portion of the cruise tour. What there is the opportunity to do meal packages, buy meal packages. We do not do it. The reason we don't do it is because we did do it, and we didn't feel like it was a great experience. Why? Because you don't go to New York and sign up to eat in the same restaurant for 3 days.
Correct,
Right?
yes.
There's opportunities to dine in different destinations. I don't want a $22 breakfast that's mimosas and bacon and sauce. I want a bagel and I want a coffee and it costs me $5.
Right.
Right? So it gives you the option to do these things. So that's why we don't do it. Of course, we're going to put you in the areas where you can make the choices that you want. And those choices are a reindeer hot dog, right, on the side of the street. That's why there's no Christmas anymore. There's a...
My preacher is on the Skype, remember.
As you go to Talkeetna, there are Airstreams that sit on the side of the street that do freshly prepared spinach bread. It's a few bucks. You can also have some of the best bouillabaisse that you've ever had in your life. And yeah, it's like $40.
Yeah.
So there is that range there. And I think kind of what I would communicate to folks is that what people are concerned about is the money.
Yeah.
Right? They know what it costs when they go on a cruise. They don't know what it costs because there's that meal component to it. This is the deal. The interior of Alaska is no more or less expensive than an expensive American city. Think of San Francisco, think of a New York, right? That's the sort of price range that you're in. and there'll be the options that are open to you for the dining as you go to the interior.
So just like any big city, eat the local cuisine. The reindeer hot dog's going to be less expensive than the New York
Right.
City hot dog that they have to fly in.
So the fish is all,
Okay.
you know,
Totally makes
the,
sense.
the fish that's freshly caught out of,
Sure.
you know, the halibut at the beginning of the season. That's what you want anyway, right? That's why you're there.
That's why you're there. Okay, we've got questions.
Okay.
Actually, we had a comment from several of the agents and some of the people who are watching. They said, he's doing such a good job, I don't have any questions yet.
Okay.
So you must have failed somewhere because now we have questions. Okay. So Mark wants to know, I think we can go on the road together, don't you?
Where are we going?
I think we're going to Alaska is where I think we're going. So Mark wants to know, what are some of the best tours guests can book in Alaska? Is it like gold panning, rafting, fishing? Are there any like must-dos?
On the cruise or into the, you know,
On the
probably didn't put
tour.
that- on the interior of Alaska?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to talk about some of the included experiences.
Okay.
Right? So a cruise tour includes included experiences, kind of like shore excursions, but already built into the experience of your cruise tour. Now, different cruise tours have different included experiences. A couple of my favorites. I love the Riverboat Discovery up in Fairbanks. It takes you along the Chena River. The folks that have been doing it, the Binkley family, awesome people. They've been there for 100 years.
Oh, wow.
And they run the Chena Riverboat operation. It takes you to the Chena Indian Village. Great experiences as they show you life of living in a frontier town. It is awesome, awesome, awesome. As you go to Seward, I love sailing up into Resurrection Bay that's on the Kenai Peninsula. Orcas, sea lions, whales, bald eagles overhead. It is a magical, magical experience. So there are some included experiences that I think are amazing. But also there's the opportunity, of course, in order to go to the dog kennels and visit with the dogs who do the Iditarod race every year. That's a very, very cool experience. If there's a unique experience that's wanted, then I would always recommend to fly onto a glacier in order to do the dog sledding, because it's very, very cool. But also, just around Denali National Park, you can go into the visitor center, and there are just beautiful hikes that surround it. Little ones, an hour, hour and a half, a couple hours, and you can walk around the trails. It is absolutely fabulous. Doesn't cost anything, and it's an awesome experience. Yes, ma'am.
How much is a riverboat excursion?
So the
Ballpark.
So-
question is, how much is the riverboat excursion? We have to say that because they can't hear her.
Okay.
Okay? They can hear us. They can't hear her.
The question was, you are 6'1" and gorgeous. How did you get that way?
Right.
So,
Thank you, but I'm not actually 6'1". I'm 5'7" with the shoes on.
oh, you didn't?
Oh, the riverboat crew. Get back to the thing, and you're just
Okay.
drinking water. We're not ready to get through this.
So, the Riverboat Discovery, there are cruise tours where it's an included experience as part of that, and there's also the opportunity to purchase it as a optional. It's in
What
like,
makes the difference?
It's in like the $100 range.
$100 range for that. Okay, so some other questions. For the cruise tours, you mentioned 7 nights on the ship. What are the options for the tour portions, like 3, 4, 5?
2 to 6 nights.
So 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6?
So
Or
9
just
to 13 nights overall.
Okay.
2 to 6 nights as part of the tour portion, but I would always say this: 2 ain't enough.
Yeah.
3 about gets you there. The preference is starting at 4 nights in the interior of Alaska.
Sure.
It really, really is. It's a big destination.
It's interesting because so many people have Alaska as like a bucket list, but it's so, to me, this is sounding like it's so achievable. It doesn't need to be a bucket list. I mean, because you're getting a chance to do both. You're getting a chance to be on a beautiful ship and see the interior from the ship, and you're getting a chance to be right there on land. And it shouldn't be a bucket list. This could be something you could do. All right, hold on. I've got more. Please repeat audience questions. I got you. Barbara, is there a price difference with air for north versus south, generally speaking?
Not a price difference on air, but you'll tend to find that the southbound cruise tours are a little bit more expensive than the northbound cruise tours. And that is because more people tend to prefer to do southbound. Therefore, they get booked quicker, and therefore the price tends to increase a little bit more.
And you can book your air through Celebrity too, right?
Absolutely. We have
Celebrity Air. So if you're a travel agent, make sure with TPI, make sure you know all about the Celebrity Air options. And if you are a consumer, make sure you ask your travel agent about the Celebrity Air. Right, Dave? Yes. Okay. Good job.
Thank you for your contribution,
Mark,
Dave.
Yes. Thank you, Dave. Doing a good job back there. We've got Marissa Bell and Elizabeth typing in all of your questions. Mark wants to know: is it advantageous to book cruise tour with Cruise Air or separate? Oh my God, I was just talking about that. Should you do the Cruise Air or do it separate with the cruise tour? He's gonna say book it with Celebrity.
Absolutely, I'm going to say book it with
Okay.
Celebrity, and not only because flights by Celebrity is a fabulous option. Remember, you have the option to be able to choose your air. It's not a question of just going in there and getting it assigned to you. You can choose your options for the air that you want, but it also, of course, guarantees you that if there's any issues with the travel, that we're going to get you to the beginning of the cruise or the tour portion of the cruise tour.
That's really
and very
important.
competitive pricing as well. Absolutely, 100% book the air.
So what that means for those who, you said it beautifully. I'm not saying you don't know what you're saying, but
Okay.
here's the thing: if you book your air, however, exactly. But if you book your air on your own or without an agent or what have you, and the airline cancels the flight for whatever reason, the ship's going to sail. If you book it through Celebrity Air, we're going to get you. Celebrity's going to take the responsibility of getting you there. Is that
Right.
correct?
Absolutely.
All right, see?
Dave?
Yes.
Fantastic. I've got more questions.
I want his job.
I know. His job is so much easier than our job, don't you think? But we're having more fun. What lodges are used in Denali?
So I'm going to not answer that question of what lodges are used in Denali.
Okay.
Because I got a whole slide for it.
Oh, fantastic. Pause. He's going to talk to you about that. Let me go on to some next ones. Tiffany said this is her first time really listening to Celebrity. She's learning so much. Thanks,
Awesome.
Tiffany.
Thank you, Tiffany.
Yeah, well, we're really good. He's excellent. Are any of the experiences disabled or handicap friendly?
They're all disabled and handicap friendly. This is a big, big part of what we do. It's very, very important that the ADA accessible folks can have a fabulous experience as they come to the interior of Alaska with us.
Give it up for
Everything that we do is fully ADA accessible, wheelchair accessible. That means the properties in which we stay, that means the rail section, that means the deluxe motor coaches, that means everything that is an included experience, everything that's there as part of the cruise tour, fully ADA accessible, and not ADA accessible just to the tune of you can be there, you will have a great time while you're there. Now, the optionals, yes, there is a level of ADA accessible or not, but as part of the included experience, absolutely, very important to us.
Excellent, fantastic. Yay, right? A lot of times we don't get to hear that answer. A lot of times it's like, Europe doesn't have ADA compliance. So,
Yeah.
you go to Europe, we can't get them.
Well, listen, when they built the
They
Roman
can't-
Empire,
Yeah,
it was like, if you can't get up the steps.
they were basically like, you're going to have
You
to hang
know,
out down here.
not
The rest
cool.
of us are going to leave you. So
But I will say this about Alaska, is that I think you can go to destinations of the world, and maybe if anyone's been to the Caribbean, I think you can go to a destination in the Caribbean where you just don't feel like people are making an effort about everything all of the time.
Sure.
You never feel that in Alaska.
Yeah.
You never feel that people are not making an effort. They are so happy to welcome you to Alaska, to give you those experiences. I mean, if anyone feels differently about having been there, then say so. But whenever I've been, especially to the interior of Alaska, they are so proud of their state, and they want to introduce it to you, and they want to introduce it to you in a fair way. And I think that's awesome about that destination.
okay, fantastic. Okay, so hang on a second. Wallace.
I got like another 45 minutes.
Yeah, you're going to have to go a little faster, big guy. All right, Wallace, I'll get to your question in a second. It's about salmon, the salmon run. When's a good time?
Okay.
Is it July or August?
It's typically middle of June going into the early part of July. So if you're talking about the salmon run,
Yes.
right, that's going to be the time frame. Now, it can depend, right? It's a natural phenomenon.
Sure.
And so it can be a little earlier, it can be a little later. But typically you'll be in the middle part of June to the early part of, usually it's kind of middle to late June.
Okay, fantastic. All right, I'm going to get the air turned back on because they turned it off. Okay, so we're going to get the air turned back on. Let's keep going.
All right, so let's talk about something else.
Yeah, it's still Alaska, right?
So, suggestions, right? If you're thinking about going to this part of the world, if you're making recommendations about going to this part of the world, really my suggestion is that you start by making a list, right? And you take that list and you separate it out into 3 columns. And the first column is, what are the things that I must do, right? If I'm going to go all the way to this part of the world and have these experiences, what are the things that I have to experience in order to go there? That's your first column. Your second column is, what are the experiences that I've heard of, but maybe it's not key for me. You know, maybe I can push it off to another time. And then the third list is the things that I've heard of, but it's not important to me. Because I think what you'll find, right, as you start to go through this process, is the reasons that kind of drive you to want to experience Alaska. Right? It could be it could be a particular area, it could be a particular experience, but really it's underpinned by three things, which is that people want to experience wilderness, right? They want to experience wildlife, they want to experience mountains, and they want to experience glaciers. And as you begin to make that list, what you find, if you want to experience wilderness, is that, and I'm not talking just about a destination here, I'm not talking about Denali National Park or the Chugach Mountain Range or the Kenai Peninsula. I'm talking about just that sense of separation, right? Of the hustle and bustle of everyday life and people, and then being surrounded by that magnificence of nature in Alaska. To get that, you get a lot of it on the southeastern coastline, but to truly experience it, you've got to go to the interior of Alaska, right? You got to do a cruise tour. If you want to experience the wildlife, right? And by that, I typically mean by land, it's the big five, right? It's the moose, the caribou, the grizzlies, the Dall sheep, and the wolves. And to best experience those, the best opportunity of those, where are they? They're in Denali National Park. For that, you have to go to the interior of Alaska, right? You got to experience a cruise tour. Fortunately, there aren't bears that are marauding around Juneau on a Tuesday afternoon. That would be really, really bad. Got to go to the interior. Everybody talks about experiencing the mountain, right? There's a lot of mountain and mountain ranges.
Oh, look at that.
Right? There's the Alaska Range, there's the Kenai Mountains, but what are they talking about? One, Denali, formerly Mount McKinley, which is the tallest peak in North America, and at 20,000 feet and still growing. It is beautiful when the clouds rise. But that is over 377 miles from any given cruise port in Alaska. You don't see that on the coastline. You got to go to the interior. You got to do a cruise tour. Now, scenic areas of cruising that I'm sure you guys have heard of, right? Those glacial areas you get as part of any cruise only or cruise tour experience. But 3 out of the 4 underpinning reasons that kind of drove you to say, hey, I want to have those experiences, you're not going to experience in the best possible way unless you do both the cruise and the land tour as part of a cruise tour.
Sure.
So as you begin to kind of list those experiences, it become apparent what you need to do in order to have the best experiences as you go to the southeastern coastline and in the interior of Alaska. Really becomes fabulous when you do both the cruise and the land tour.
Yeah, I can totally see that. I didn't even know they did those things together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm
Yeah.
glad you were here tonight.
Yeah,
'cause-
well, I mean, that's why I came.
Yeah, thank goodness. I think we're all learning something. Any questions as he goes on to the next? Any?
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm from Florida. That looks really cold.
All right, she's.
How cold is it?
So we have a Florida resident, me too. She wants to know, how cold is it?
So what you're looking at right here is Hubbard.
It's a dry cold. Let's just start with that. You know, I'm just joking. You know, they're the dry heat.
Right, I know, but like when you say wrong things, should I correct you or
Yes,
I mean,
you
you're the boss?
Probably, yes.
Sure.
Go ahead. Why don't you answer that
Sure, it's a
question?
dry cold. So where you're looking at now, this is Hubbard Glacier. So particularly, this is a scenic area of cruising, right? You may have heard of Glacier Bay. You may have heard of Hubbard Glacier. You may have heard of Tracy Arm Fjord. So this is about as cold as it's going to look anywhere along the southeastern coastline or the interior of Alaska. Really, the kind of images, the kind of experiences in the interior of Alaska and along the coastline, it's beautiful, it's blooming, right? Because that's what it is along certainly the interior of Alaska. This is a little bit different because it's the scenic area of cruising. This is a glacier. That's why it looks cold. So in terms of the weather, right, going back to what we talked about before, 60s, typically in around this Anchorage sort of area, a little higher, a little lower. You can get a little cooler on the coastline as you go down to Juneau and Skagway and Ketchikan, maybe in the 50s sort of a region. You can get hotter as you go into the interior. Last May when I was in Fairbanks, it was 91 degrees, right? It ranges, but this looks cool. Yeah, you do. They're all there, all at the front of the ship.
See him right there at the front? Look at me. I'm like, can't you tell right there? Oh, did I press something? Oh, hang on a second. Okay, so Tiffany wants to know, can a non-adventurer child still have a good time on a trip like this?
Yes, but I wouldn't say any younger than 8 to 9 years old.
Okay.
There's travel in the interior of Alaska, right? So, you know, when the kids get too young, I wouldn't recommend it. Certainly as part of a cruise-only experience, 100%.
Yeah.
Absolutely, they'll have a fabulous time.
But the tour portion,
Tour portion, I wouldn't go younger than 8 to 10 years old. Family and friends, they'll know their kids better than anyone. But that's where I would go with that.
and then Barbara wants to know how many people are typically on a cruise tour on average.
So for us, we do what's called a small group tour experience. Typically, you're going to be around 42 persons. Now, the industry standard, right, is somewhere in the region of around 50 persons, 55 persons plus. So when we say small group tour, we're talking about the cruise tour industry. It'll be around 42 persons. And as part of every small group tour, there is always going to be 2 persons who are there in order to chaperone that. The fully escorted tour director, but then also the dedicated motor coach driver. And I'll talk a little bit about that as we go.
Okay, good deal. Well, let's keep talking.
All right. So the glaciers are absolutely fabulous. And what to say about the glaciers? I know that some glacial areas are messaged more than others, right? You've probably heard more about Glacier Bay than you had of any other scenic area of cruising. And that's fine. I was really, really fortunate to visit all of the glacial scenic areas of cruising because I cruised on that coastline for 3 years, whether it be Hubbard Glacier or Glacier Bay or Troisième Fjord. And certainly my feelings on it very much mirror the partnerships that we have in the coastline and the way they feel about it, which is that they are all fabulously beautiful in their own individual and unique ways. There isn't one that's better than the other. They're just all gorgeous and they have their own personality. And the analogy I use all the time, because my wife and I, we love to go to national parks. If you love to go to national parks, anyone, I don't think that you would ever say that the only national park that you should ever go to is Big Sur.
Yeah.
Forget about every other national park.
Well,
they're just not worth it. Only ever go to Big Sur. That's an insane thing to say.
Sure.
Because Yellowstone is fabulous in its own individual and unique way, as is Denali, as is those different national parks. It's the same thing with the scenic areas of cruising. Now, they have their own personality, and Hubbard Glacier, for sure, is the most dramatic of all of the areas of scenic cruising, and that's true for a reason, and the scientific term is she is the largest advancing tidewater glacier in North America. And what that means is that where other glacial areas are receding, Hubbard Glacier is advancing to the tune of around 30 meters per day.
Is that going up?
It's out.
Going out.
Yeah. And what that creates is calvings. This is when the cliffs of ice collapse from the glacier into the ocean, and it's dramatic and it's spectacular, and that's why the native Alaskans called it White Thunder, because it's the most dramatic of the experiences out there.
Super active.
Where you're looking here, this is the Millennium. She's in Disenfranchisement Bay. You've got a glacier face that is 7 miles wide. Think about a point that is 7 miles from here. That's how far it goes. Hundreds of feet above the ocean, hundreds of feet below the ocean, carvings that are collapsing off. You've got a dedicated onboard naturalist who is narrating the experience. The captain is spinning the ships. You get these fabulous views that surround you. It is an awesome day. But so is Glacier Bay. And so is Troisième Fjord in their own individual and unique way.
And so on these tours, on these itineraries, do you see one or two, or do you see them all?
Typically, you see one.
One, okay,
right?
gotcha.
You may have Hubbard Glacier, you may have Glacier Bay, you may have Troisième Fjord. Glacier Bay is a more elongated, longer experience with different types of glaciers. Troisième Fjord, you sail through a narrow passageway, and as the mountains open up, you have the northern and southern glacier, and it's beautiful in their own individual and unique way. If you haven't been to Alaska before, you are going to be blown away by any one of these scenic areas of cruising. If you've been before, then yes, there's an opportunity to say, hey, I saw this, so maybe I want to see this.
Sure.
But don't pick your itinerary by saying, I want to go to this scenic areas of cruising or that, because they are going to be all fabulous.
Got it. Don't overthink this stuff, you guys. All right, we have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
David wants to know, is there an average demographic that takes this cruise tour?
55, 60, 65.
Excellent. Right in my wheelhouse. Jill wants to know, knowing few cruise lines are allowed into Glacier National Park, how does your itinerary compare?
So within our northbound, southbound itinerary, we are using Hubbard Glacier. We also have Troisième Fjord. Off the top of my head, we don't have any itineraries that go to Glacier Bay today.
Okay.
It tends to be seasonal on how the permits are issued, because it's permits that are issued by the Alaskan authorities. So when I say compare, I go back to they're all beautiful in their own
Right.
individual and unique way. I would never pick an itinerary by saying, I want to go to Hubbard Glacier, I want to go to Glacier Bay, because they're all spectacularly beautiful.
Sure.
So an itinerary in Alaska is pretty consistent, right? So let's get into that a little bit, because think about if you've ever done a European cruise before. How did you start that conversation? That's a pretty big conversation. I want to go to Europe, I want to do a cruise. Do you do Mediterranean? Even if you are doing Mediterranean, are you doing the Eastern or the Western Mediterranean? Are you talking about the Amalfi Coast or going to Turkey and experiencing the whirling Derbishers? Even if you're talking about Northern Europe, do you do the Norwegian fjords? Do you do the Baltics, which are dramatically different? There are big conversations that you have to have about the European itinerary that you want to experience. Alaska is Juneau and Skagway and Ketchikan, and you can switch up Icy Strait Point Pacifica, and you've got a scenic area of cruising that might be a little bit different depending on the itinerary, and that is about it, right? You've got Homer and Kodiak, a couple of unique destinations, but if you look at all of the cruises out there, not just Celebrity, but all the other guys, and look at those itineraries, 95% of them are going to be a variation of Juneau, Skagway, Ketchikan, Icy Strait Point Pacifica, right? And then a scenic area of cruising. That's what it's going to be. So when you say, what is unique? That's a great question. Because if the itinerary is pretty consistent, and the size of ship is pretty consistent, which it is, right? Millennium is, Dave, could you help us out here?
Sure. Well, it hosts just about 2,000 guests.
And I knew that.
2,000 guests on the Millennium.
Frankly, I just wanted you to contribute.
Sitting back there doing basically nothing, just doing nothing. I'm not sure if while we're talking and that loop is going, if they're able to see us. So I'm not
Okay.
sure if you want to go to the next to see. I don't know. Just FYI.
Okay.
While you're doing that, Ravi wants to know what side of the ship is a better view from a balcony room?
So typically,
Port side or starboard side?
so if you're going to northbound, then you're going to be typically on the right side of the ship, and the right side is the starboard side. Awesome. And if you're going southbound, you're going to be on the port side of the ship. But don't overthink this.
Yeah, I would.
Remember, as you're going through the inside passage, which is a part of the inside passage as you come down to Vancouver, you've got beautiful scenery on either side. Scenic area of cruising, right? He's spinning the ship, and you are many nautical miles off the coastline. It is not going to be a situation
No,
where you're
not
going to
at all.
have these fabulous views by just being on a particular side of the ship.
Get out of the cabin and go up to the top. All right, what's next, my friend?
So, scenic areas of cruising. So what's unique about a cruise? This is what it comes down to. What is unique about a cruise in Alaska, if the itinerary is pretty consistent, is going to be the personality of the ship. It is going to be the amenities. It is going to be the experience on board. And this is why I say this as someone who spent 11 years on board with 9 different cruise lines. If you have had a fabulous experience with Celebrity in Europe, it doesn't change for Alaska.
Yeah.
If you've had a fabulous experience with Celebrity in South America, it doesn't change for Alaska, because the scenic areas of cruising are going to be fabulous regardless, and the itinerary is pretty consistent. And I think if anyone has had an experience with Celebrity here on board, I hope it was a great experience. I know it was for me. I spent many years working on board with them. It is an awesome, awesome experience on board.
It is.
And that is what is going to be unique as you cruise to Alaska.
Absolutely.
All right, let's move on, because I know this was meant to be like 40 minutes long, wasn't it?
Yeah, you're talking
Yeah.
way too much.
I know, I'm sorry
just
about
saying. A lot of jibber jabber going.
Woo! All right.
What else is exciting?
All right. So, what is unique about the interior of Alaska? Let me get to the slide here. You put me off, man.
Well, I think the loop was they weren't seeing us, and that was kind of important
Oh,
for them
okay.
to see us as
Oh,
well.
I see.
I'm just joking.
I
have
didn't
no
realize.
idea. I have no idea.
So, that's what's unique about the coastline of Alaska. What's unique about the interior of Alaska? This is the truth. There's a lot that's the same in the interior of Alaska. The Bears don't care if you're with us or another cruise line. You don't need to show ship ID, right?
Hello, I'm with Celebrity.
There's a lot that's different
Yeah.
as well. What is unique about Celebrity in the interior of Alaska is what we call boutique and local, right? We're really driving and having boutique and local experiences as you go to the interior of Alaska. And what that really comes down to is the lodges, their area, the service, and the transport. A lot of folks do cruise tours into the interior of Alaska and the coastline. What we do is boutique and local, the lodges, the area, the service, and the transport. Now, I know there was that question about the lodges. So what lodges do we use? The easiest way to kind of think about this is that we use the finest properties available, locally owned and operated where we can. But we'll never sacrifice using the finest available simply because they're locally owned and operated. We are always driving to use the best. Great example of that is the property coming up right here. This is Hotel Alyeska. Hotel Alyeska is a fabulous luxury resort. It's got 4 Diamond Star restaurant on the top of the Chugach mountain ranges with beautiful views. It has saltwater heated swimming pools that look out over the mountain ranges.
look at
You can
that.
see the 7 hanging glaciers from the top here. It is absolutely fabulous, and it's owned by a guy from Las Vegas. It's like the least locally owned and operated thing that you can imagine. But it's the best. And that's why we partner with Hotel Alyeska as part of the properties that when we go to Girdwood. You're looking at Talkeetna Alaskan Lodge here. Tell me.
Quick question. So you've already chosen it. It's not like choose from one of these 3 when we're in the particular area.
Right. When we go to Girdwood, we stay at Hotel Alyeska. When we go to Talkeetna, we stay at Hotel Talkeetna.
Gotcha.
Hotel Talkeetna, just 5 minutes away from the town of Talkeetna, so you can get down there, have those great local experiences. And what's sitting right in front of it is the Alaska Range, with Denali towering above it. Not uncommon for there to be pajama parties at 2 o'clock in the morning in front of Talkeetna when the clouds rise and those telephone calls go around. Because remember, you're talking 20 plus hours of sunlight. You can see the mountain at any time. It's an awesome, awesome property. We would certainly say the second finest property in the interior of Alaska. It's a great, great property. Where we stay in Denali, and I think that was the question, right?
Yep.
The Denali Park Village is the property that we partner with, just 12 minutes away from the gates of Denali National Park itself. Remember, there are no properties, or mostly there are no properties inside Denali. Everyone is on the outskirts of the gates of Denali National Park. So we're 12 minutes away from Denali National Park itself. It sits right on the Nenana River. Fire pits on the outside. It's cozy, it's comfortable, but it's basic. And this is an important point about the interior of Alaska. If you want the 4 seasons every day, it ain't gonna happen.
Got it.
Right? We use the finest properties available,
I caught that
locally owned
when
and
you said
operated
that,
where we
yeah.
can. And that's real important, because even though we use the best that's there, that doesn't make it the 4 seasons. When you go to Denali, it is a national park. What surrounds national parks? National park type properties. They're cozy, they're comfortable, they're basic. What I would say is 5-star view and a 3-star property. And that's what it is. So you kind of have to accept that as you go to the interior of Alaska. We use the best that's there. The best that's there doesn't necessarily mean that there's going to be a butler with a silly little hat and bringing you some crab on a stick.
Whatever. I'll go anyway. It's fine.
So
Silly
also
little
what's
crab
different
on a
is
stick.
the fact that every single celebrity cruise tour is a fully escorted experience. When I say fully escorted, I don't just mean like there's someone there who's telling you what to do and where to go. Fully escorted means that there's someone who comes from Alaska or lives in Alaska but has that deep connection with Alaska that is escorting the tour portion of the cruise tour from beginning to end. And let me tell you what the industry standard is, right? From the cruise tour industry is what's called a repped experience. And what that means is that you go to the interior of Alaska, you go to the hotel, and you're met by a rep. Rep checks your paperwork, says, okay, you're on cruise tour number 6. You go check in, you go to your hotel room, you come down in the morning, and now there's a new rep, right? Because that was the night rep, and this is the day rep. And the day rep checks your paperwork, and they send you outside, and there's 12 different motor coaches with going in 9 different directions. Somebody checks your paperwork, and off you go. And there's nothing wrong with it. There really isn't.
Right.
It's just not what we do. When you come into the interior of Alaska, you're met by one person, and that is your dedicated local tour director. And that dedicated local tour director introduces you to your dedicated motor coach driver. And that dedicated motor coach driver shows you your own dedicated motor coach for the duration of the small group tour experience. That's the experience that we want you to have on a celebrity cruise tour. And I say this all the time, and I really, really believe it. I think everyone has been to a city where they've just kind of figured it out with guidebooks. And I think everyone's been to a city where someone who comes from that city, someone who cares about that city, someone who loves that city, introduces that city to them. That's the experience that we want you to have on a celebrity cruise tour.
Big difference. Big difference.
It's an awesome, awesome way to travel into the interior of Alaska. And then finally, the transportation. These are the rail carriages, the Wilderness Express rail carriages. Every single celebrity cruise tour includes a rail section. Some have multiple. Deluxe motor coaches and rail is going to be part of that cruise tour experience. 80 persons up top, luxury leather seating, those big, domed, beautiful glass roofs to get the fabulous scenery that surrounds you in Alaska. Down below, 40 persons, white linen, silver service, freshly prepared meals by a chef with local ingredients that day. It's an awesome way to travel Alaska that's available to you. These are a fabulous rail carriages. Every single cruise tour has one rail segment. Typically, you're about 4 to 6 hours there. Some cruise tours have multiple rail segments. Some cruise tours, you're on the rail the whole time. Just kind of depends. But great transportation. What is unique about a Celebrity Cruise Tour? It's the lodges, their area, the service, and the transportation. That's really what's unique about it there.
Love it.
Did
That
you-
looks amazing.
Did you have anything to say?
No. Ready to go to Alaska. I want to do all the trains, though.
Okay.
I like the rail.
Trains, it's an awesome way to go.
That's, to me,
an
it's all
awesome
about
way
the
to go.
rail.
Cruise tour number 8, I'm going to say that now, entirely the way to go. Rail the whole way. Very,
Okay,
very cool.
cruise tour number 8. Book that for me, Effie.
So we're going to finish up on a couple things because, you know, I said I like to talk, and now you're really starting to feel the brunt of
And
it.
you've really proven it, yes. No, he's doing great. Don't you guys think he's doing great? I can hear you guys clapping over the phone, too. I mean, over the thing.
My second bottle of water.
Yes, thank goodness we are keeping you hydrated.
So we're going to finish up on a couple things, and we
Okay.
are really going to finish up now. I think I often say this because sometimes what happens is you talk about rail coaches and escorts and all these things, and people start thinking about bus tours. It's not a bus tour. It's the furthest thing there is from a bus tour, and I encourage you to think about a cruise tour in 3 core components. Why do a cruise tour? To experience the interior of Alaska along with the coastline. That's a geographically vast area, we talked about that, in supreme comfort with unique included experiences that's balanced with time to explore on your own.
Yeah.
Think about it in 3 core components. It's the geographical necessity to get from A to B. It's a big place, right? During that time, there will be included experiences. And afterwards, it's the opportunity for you to explore on your own. And what you'll see as part of the daily details in the brochure is that every single day is broken out into 2 paragraphs. The first paragraph talks about what you're going to do as part of that small group tour. The second paragraph always starts with, from 4:30 p.m., Denali is yours to explore. Or from 5:30 p.m., Fairbanks is yours to explore. So you know, hey, this is when I'm with the small group tour, and this is when it's for me and my friends and my family and loved ones just to do the things that we want to do.
Perfect. Good, so you know ahead of time.
Yeah.
I like
so
that.
those included experiences, I personally would break them out into 2 different types. You have a banner included experience. And when I say a banner included experience, forget Celebrity or the cruise tour industry. These are experiences that people fly in the world over to experience. The tours into Denali National Park, 5, 6, 7, 8, up to 9 hours long, going deep into the heart of Denali National Park with opportunities to see the mountain and the opportunities for wildlife and the tundra and the taiga, and it's beautiful, and there's a national park ranger who's narrating the whole experience. And these are people that love this destination. They are, you know, tree-hugging hippies. That's what they
Yeah,
are. They
right.
love the destination. They love talking about it. It's important. As you go to Resurrection Bay, I talked a little bit before about Seward, right? You can sail up into the Kenai Peninsula, Kenai Fjords National Park, 50 or 100-mile round trip, local captain, great opportunity for orcas and sea lions and whales. It's a fabulous day. That's a banner-included experience. It's many hours long. What do we have in addition? Additional included experiences. Now, these are very cool, right? You look at the Alaska Wildlife Conservation Center. What is it? It's a rehabilitation center for indigenous animals that have been orphaned before they're sent back out into the wild. But it's 45 minutes long. It's not 5 hours long.
Yeah.
So why do we have them? We have them because nobody wants to sit on a motor coach for 4 hours.
Right.
Right? So it gives us a way to get you to the destination that you want to go in comfort, in supreme comfort, but also breaking up the travel with an additional included experience. When you get there, there will be maybe a banner included experience. Every cruise tour has at least one. And then after that, it's the time for you to explore on their own and do the things that you want to do. It's a way for us to ensure that you're having great experiences and comfort while you travel.
Love it. Yeah, because you're right. I don't want to be on a thing for 4 hours. And I want to see the animals, because that's one of the 4 things.
Right.
Wilderness, glaciers, animals,
Mountain.
mountains.
We're going to get you a
I could work for
like a winter
Celebrity. I'm
bag.
doing a better job than Dave is.
David's not doing the job. I believe that's his 3rd beer back there.
I think he and I have got the celebrity thing down.
All right, so we're going to finish up on 2 things.
Okay.
And I'm going to say this because the challenge becomes, right, when you get to this book, you start to look through this book, and there are 10 different cruise tours,
Right.
Those 10 different cruise tours, they go northbound or southbound. So effectively, there's like 20 different cruise tours. And this is where people start to have a little bit of a challenge. Which cruise tour should I do? There's 20 different options. 10 northbound and southbound, that's 20 different options. So what I would simply say is this. You look at this screen here, where do we go as part of the 9 and 10 night cruise tours? You have the options to go to Fairbanks, Denali, Talkeetna, or Anchorage. Where do we go on the 11 night cruise tours?
Got it.
Fairbanks, Denali, Talkeetna, or Anchorage. One more destination is an option there, which is Alyeska. Where do we go on the 12? Same deal. The cruise tours themselves are not uniquely different for every single one, right? There's a range of included experiences, yes. The destinations change very slightly, yes. But the big difference between the cruise tours is time.
Right.
The more time that you spend in that destination, the better experience that you will have. So these are the 3 questions I always suggest that you ask yourself when you start to get down to the point of which cruise tour should I do. Question number 1 is when can you sail, right? Because that's going to determine whether you're doing a northbound or a southbound sailing. For me, it's a preference thing, but it'll be a northbound or southbound sailing. Once you've said, you know what, the best time for me to go is June 15th, that is going to be either a northbound sailing or a southbound sailing. Half the options have been taken off the board. What's your second question? How many nights can I go? And the answer to that question is you go when you can give the most nights to that experience. If you can do 11 nights in June, you go in June. If you can do 12 nights in May, you go in May. Because the longer that you go, the better experience that you'll have. The third question is, do I want to go to Fairbanks? And that's a really important question because everywhere else in the interior of Alaska, except for Fairbanks, is wilderness and wildlife and mountains and glaciers. It's all that good stuff. Not in Fairbanks. There is no wilderness.
Yeah.
There is no wildlife. There is no mountains. And there sure as hell is no glaciers.
Gotcha.
So why do you go to Fairbanks? You go to Fairbanks because in the early 1900s when the steamboat was grounded and it was founded on gold mining and then the gold mining operations came up from there, you go to Fairbanks for history and you go for the culture and you go for the local experiences. I love Fairbanks, but it's also 4 hours north of Denali. So just by going there, you get less of that wilderness and wildlife and mountains and glaciers down here. So if you want the history and the culture and those local experiences, and I love them, I love Fairbanks, you pick an option that goes to Fairbanks. And if you don't want those experiences, you don't pick an option that goes to Fairbanks. Because what you'll see within the brochure is that for our 10-night cruise tours, we've got 2 options. One goes to Fairbanks and one doesn't. For our 11-night cruise tours, we got 2 options. One goes to Fairbanks and one doesn't. For our 12-night cruise tours, we got 2 options, and so on and so on. So it creates an easy way for you to make those decisions. Don't hammer it down by this included experience versus that included experience. Pick the longest that you can go, and then take the Fairbanks option or not. That's
That
going to
makes
be
it
the
super
easiest
easy.
way in order to get down there.
That makes it super easy.
So we talked a little bit about the weather, but I do want to say this. Why do the longest experience that you can? When people ask about the weather, they're not really asking about the weather. What they're really asking is, when can I go to Alaska where the whales are going to leap out of the ocean and high-five each other? Right? That's what they're really asking. When can I go to Alaska where the bears are going to tango through the forest for me?
Right.
That's the question that they're asking.
And the glaciers are falling at the same time.
Exactly.
They're exploding.
Alaska is a natural destination. It's not Disney World, right? The animals will be there if they want to, and they won't if they won't.
Right.
The clouds will rise from Denali, and it won't if it won't. The longer that you spend there, the more opportunities will come to have those quintessentially magical Alaskan experiences. And that is why the longer time that you spend in Alaska, the better experience you have, because it is a natural destination. And spending that time there will give you the opportunity for those magical experiences to occur. Quick one, just want to mention this.
How
This
not
is-
to dress.
This is how not to dress
We're okay.
when you go to Alaska, all right? We talked about the weather a little bit. Layering is the way that you want to go to Alaska. You want to throw it on, you want to be able to take it off, depending if it's raining, depending if it's sunny, depending if it's a little bit chillier. This is not the way to go. I've seen a lot of people walk around Alaska with big coats and crimping boots, and it's
Yeah.
not cool.
No.
It's not cool.
I told you it's a dry cold. Well, it's not a dry cold. It's not that cold.
So this is the best part of the presentation, because this is the celebrity offer, and this is when Dave comes to do some work.
Dave, finally. Look at him. He's got to turn his microphone back
Oh
on.
my word. Dave.
Dave. Poor Dave. Right, Marissa
Should
Bell?
I
Poor
bring this to somebody
Dave.
that time, too?
Let's give it up for Dave. Actually,
How did you do?
he did amazing.
Oh, it's good. You don't need to do it. Thank you. Thank you.
We're like two whales on the
Yeah.
thing.
High five,
Well,
yes.
we're not big that way. So Dave, tell them about first
Yes.
off, like the cool promotion that we have going on just for people who watch live or attended live. If you watch live or attended live, this is for you. You
Sure.
got it? You got your cheat sheet?
So everybody that's here in the room tonight, and for those of you who are not here in the room, this, if it hasn't been already, it will be posted for all of our travel TPI partners out there, and for those guests who might be listening as well. And this is only if you book through a Travel Planners International travel agent partner. We have an exclusive offer. And what this is basically your opportunity to gain additional onboard spending on any cruise that is actually for 2018, and that includes all of our Alaska and all the stuff that Brendan actually spoke about regarding our Alaska cruises and cruise tours. But also it does cover some other destinations should be looking for something else down the road. It's valid for 1 week. And again, it's additional onboard spending where you could actually earn anywhere up to $450 onboard spending for your cabin. All right?
Say
Sound
that
good?
one more time.
Up to $450 for your cabin onboard spending. That could be used for some of these great
You get
short
$450.
Say
You get $450.
and
You get
$450.
$450.
Only if they book during this booking window through a TPI agent.
Has people cruised with Celebrity before?
Me.
Okay. Does everyone know what perks are? You heard of them before? A perk is basically an onboard amenity that's included as part of your booking, right? So our perks are, for example, a beverage package, some onboard credit, internet. So when you are booking with Celebrity, and we say, for example, there are 2 perks, you get to choose, hey, I want that beverage package and I want that Wi-Fi as part of that. So as part of the weekly offer, the brand offer, as we call it, the Celebrity offer, you get the 2 perks, and then up to $300 in savings. But on top of that, if you're booking with
I'm
Travel
glad you
Planners
called me up here,
International,
Brendan.
Yeah.
I'm just
I
kidding.
just I don't get to speak at home.
No, it's fabulous. And what Brendan did say is 100% correct. We have these exclusive offers with our partners here at TPI, but what we do have is our standard offer, which actually always gives any guest staying in an Ocean View cabin or higher will always receive 1 of 4 perks. And right now, because we are in full swing busy season, we're actually giving choice of 2 perks for Ocean View cabins in higher category. So in essence, look no further. Right now you're getting the 2 perks with Celebrity Cruises, but you're also getting now the TPI special offer for attending tonight's travel show.
And how far in advance can they book? Like can they book into 2019 right now?
No, great. We have actually sailings in our deployment, which is open for sale anywhere actually through the 2019 season. And we also have some dates that actually leave in 2020. Our Alaska deployment isn't out for 2020 yet, but it's in full swing for 2018, but also next year, 2019.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yes, ma'am.
But this special is only through this year.
Yes, ma'am. This
Yes.
special. I was gonna make that clarification.
Yep.
So it's book within the next 7 days and sail by the end of 2018 to get to the up to
To
450.
get the best offer available is if you sail in
Correct.
2018.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, any other questions from the audience? Any other questions from our online audience?
Anything floating out?
They have asked some really good questions today. That's why it took so long. You had great information, and we had a lot of good questions.
Yes.
Are you exhausted? I mean,
Me,
you worked
that
so
was
hard.
this was the
He
toughest
was
presentation.
so hard.
Yeah.
Okay, hang on a second. Just left the Millennium. Oh, Barbara was saying she's just left the Millennium on Sunday and she
Awesome.
enjoyed it. Yay, Barbara.
Awesome.
So now it's time to pick some
we do-
winners,
yes,
right?
let me grab some,
So we're gonna pick. Actually, what we're gonna do is because we know our online audience is ready to probably go to the restroom because we've been talking for an hour and 15 minutes. We are going to announce the 2 winners for our online audience, and then when we hang up, then we're going to announce our 2 winners here internally. Are you ready?
Sure. How are we doing the online
I got
audience
this.
drafting?
Don't worry.
You're
While
all
you were
over it?
sitting back there drinking beers and goofing off,
I can go
Marissa
back.
Bell and I figured it out. Okay, so thank you to all of you who participated online. Our 2 online winners are, give them a little. Where did you put it, Marissa Bell? Hold on.
Oh.
Wait, right there. I found it. Hold up. Barbara Ballard and Mark Chambliss.
This is what we win.
So we will mail these to you. Some some really cool
Yes.
celebrity goodies in there. And this one thing I really like is like a little tote, but it's got like a carving board thing where you can do your wine,
wine
and
and
cheese.
cheese parties.
Right, exactly.
Yeah,
You can
good
carry
stuff.
the wine and you can do the cheese and you got all that good stuff.
Yes.
So, for those of you who watched us live, thank you so very much. We really appreciate you joining us tonight. I know I personally learned a lot about Alaska and a lot about celebrity. If you're not watching us live and you've been watching us a couple of days or within that 1 week time frame from February 21st to February 28th, you still have time to book for any sailing between now and the end of the year. And please get with a TPI agent, a Travel Planners International travel agent who can hook you up with that. If you don't have one already, if you are working with an agent, then they're going to know what to do and give us a call. And if you are a TPI agent, we're super excited that you joined us tonight. So we're going to sign off. Oh, if you're a consumer, I forgot to tell them, if you need an agent, send an email to vacationnights at, I'm sorry, if you need an agent, send an email to info@vacationnights.com. That's info@vacationnights.com, and we will connect you with one of our valued Travel Planners International agents who have attended tonight's event and know everything about celebrity and Alaska, and they can take great care of you. So I think that's it. We're going to say goodbye to our online audience. Did I cover everything, ladies? Yes. All right, everyone. Bye. Wave. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye,
Take
you
care.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.